kick-ass switch, putting the K in magic. I'm Joanna DeVoe, and you're watching another episode of Every Which Way. This time featuring Karen Cameron, aka the Elemental Witch. And yes, she is a real witch, and she is a hereditary witch. Magic goes back in her family for at least 9 generations as far as she knows, and so I was extremely excited to get to pick her brain about that a little bit and just to share her beautiful energy with you all and show you how gorgeously spiritual and down to earth a real witch can be. I like to interview a whole variety of people here. I like to talk about food. I like to talk about personal development. And sometimes I like to talk about magic. And this would be one of those times. So grab yourself a cup of tea and settle in for what is sure to be a very fun witchy ride. Hi, Karen. Welcome to Every Which Way.
Hello, I'm so excited.
Me too. Thank you so much for getting up at the crack of dawn to talk to me.
You're very welcome. I'm so excited. I'm very honored.
Yeah, I am too. And you're like a newcomer on the YouTube scene, or are you? Or is this...
No, I'm totally new.
Yeah, like this year you just started joining our community, right?
Yep, that's right.
Yeah, you had like an instant magic. The second I saw you, I was like, I must talk to this woman.
Well, thank you. I was super nervous doing my very first video, and I thought to myself, what do I have to talk about that nobody else has talked about before?
You have so much to talk about that nobody's talked. That's why I was so enchanted.
But I've never really known anyone to be that interested in the fact that I come from an all practitioner family. It's never really appealed to people. It's probably because I don't really talk about it to just people on an everyday basis. But that's the thing that I get asked about the absolute most is what's it like coming from this super witchy family. I'm like, whoa.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to talk about today, because I just, you hear a lot of people talking about hereditary witchcraft and stuff like that, but as far as I know, in the community that I'm a part of, there aren't very many of you hanging around. And how many generations back is magic in your family?
9.
That is wild. That is so cool. Can you tell us a little bit about what you know, about the farthest back ancestor?
Yes and no. I know that the furthest back would probably be a great-great-great-grandma, but I know that she was Portuguese, and this was around the slave trade times. She actually fell in love with an African slave and bought, their two cultures very forbidden, but their two cultures came to Brazil, and that's sort of how the Afro-Brazilian style was sort of added to it. And beyond that, there was just a lot of letters and paperwork found amongst my grandmother's things from the women right back in our line, and that's as far back as we could actively trace it. And so we've only got snippets of writing and little stories and some little poetry that our family later converted to become little incantations and little spells as such.
That is so cool. I think we all fantasize about that. We all hope we're going to go into our grandmother's attic one day and we're going to find all these cool witchy old diaries or recipes or anything, just to feel that connection with the women that came before us.
That did. There was so much of it. My family writes down a lot of stuff, and then they don't write down a lot of stuff, depending on what they're really talking about. If it's more if there's anything to do with macumba and that Afro-Brazilian style, they don't write anything down at all. And if it's got to do with our separate style, sort of more European-based spirituality, then they tend to write that down. a lot more, and whatever sort of comes from that is like in a more like meditative, intuitive sense. They'll still work with that sort of energy. They'll still work with those papers and with those thought processes and try to sort of connect with it and build upon it. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, and let's say this word and slowly, for those of us that have never heard this before. Is it Umbanda Macumba? That's
right.
Yay!
That's it, too.
The first thing I thought of when I saw that was Hakuna Matata. What is that? Do you say Umbanda Macumba, or do you just say Macumba?
We say Macumba,
okay.
and that's a bit of an umbrella term. The style of Macumba that we practice is Umbanda. So if I was talking in general, I would say Macumba. And if I was talking to someone who practices Macumba to differentiate from the other two versions, I would say Umbanda then, just as a more of a specific title.
I have never even heard of Macumba. What is that?
It is an Afro-Brazilian style of magic. It's very, very primitive in nature. It has that sort of voodoo undertone. It's very much working directly with deity, where voodoo calls them, is it Leo or something like that? In Brazil, like in Macumba, they call them santos, which is just a direct translation for saints. And that comes from the fact that we've associated deities to specific Catholic or Christian culture. And it's in the form of, they do it as a masking form, and that was during the time of the slave trades where their traditions and their belief systems weren't allowed to be practiced.
Right.
So they slightly transformed it and gave their deities Catholic names and Catholic faces, so masks, and worked with these masks. So today, in today's society, you'll see an Umbanda Macumba centro, which is just a centre or like a more of a coven stead there. And they'll have a traditional sort of Catholic-looking altar, but every single one of those saints has their original name. I'll show you, actually.
Yes, please. This is so fun.
These are my deities. These are my deities behind me. I brought these all the way over from Brazil, so they look a bit battered. But
wow, fun.
This to most people would look like St. Barbara.
Okay.
And this is actually Inansa, which is the deity of tempests and lightning. She's a warrior goddess, typically depicted with the sword there. And if you look up images of her, she's always sort of like wielding lightning, and she's very awesome.
Wow, okay, very cool.
It's my little show and tell.
Yeah, no, this is so neat. And let's tell people who don't know, we're talking to you in Australia right now.
Yes, that's right.
Okay. Who's next?
Tropical Far North, that little point at the very top, that's where I live.
Nice. Do you have another one you want to show us? Or is that it? I didn't want to cut you off early.
This is my other one.
Okay.
And this is Ogun, and he'll look like St. George to a lot of people. But he's actually Ogun, and he's awesome too.
Neat. And did you bring those over? You moved to Australia when you were a teenager, right?
Yep, yes, I did. I didn't bring those over at that stage because we had my altar was in the house already, and it's part of the house. Like I couldn't take it with me. Mm-hmm. So, which sounds bizarre, but we all have our little altars, 5 or 6 throughout the house, and it was part of the house, so I couldn't take it. And on my last visit, when I was in my early 20s, I went back and I bought those. So I've had them, 13 years now.
You are not that old. What? In your early 20s, 13 years from now? Are you kidding? I thought you were still in your early 20s.
I'm gearing towards my mid-30s now.
Nice. Well, you look gorgeous. It must be magic. And you grew up in Brazil. What was that like?
Oh, it's intense over there. Like, I love it. I love it. It's this beautiful fusion of culture. It's got a lot of like passion and a lot of flavor, and it's very spicy, if I can describe it like that. Very colorful, and people are super, super friendly and just gorgeous and passionate about absolutely everything, in particular football. And so it was really different, actually. It's really different coming from Brazil to have that super, I don't know, they're very set in their ways over there. They're around 600 years old now, Brazil as a country, and Australia is only sort of just around 200 years old. So the vibe is super different. Everyone in Australia is like ultra laid back. They don't care about too much. It's not that they don't care about too much. They don't express too much concern about anything. Mm-hmm. Whereas it's just such a different dynamic. Both countries are so unbelievable.
Are they more reserved in Australia, you mean? Like the way they express themselves?
Yeah, I don't know what it is exactly. It's I think it's because they're still in essence, their spirituality is still in its infancy. Mm-hmm. This is taking away, like, this is not taking into consideration, like, the Aboriginal culture here, which is just absolutely beautiful and has a lot of depth and meaning to it.
Yeah.
But Aussies on a general, they're just really interested in, like, relaxing and drinking beer and just hanging by the beach sort of thing. That's really what they do. They work their whole week just so that they can get to their weekend and relax, whereas in Brazil, they don't wait till the weekend to relax. They just relax every single day and have a party every single day and interact socially every single day. And they're very nocturnal over there as well. So you've got that really cool sort of vibe to everything comes alive at night time.
Wow. It sounds beautiful. And is magic a part of the culture down there, or is that like a submersive thing that your family was involved in on the down low?
Well, yes, it was on the down low, but I don't know, it's odd because a Macumba center, doesn't matter which form of Macumba you practice, there is a lot of African drums, and they make a lot of noise. Like, I know that our center had 8 of them, so when people are banging on 8 drums, the sound is very distinctive. So it doesn't matter where you sort of are. If there's a sound nearby, you'll always hear it. So while it is hidden behind doors, like, you know that it's there just because of the general sound that comes from it and that usual vibe and the fact that a lot of people will cross the road so that they don't walk on the sidewalk near it. So
there's a fear of it there as well.
Yeah, I think I'd say a fear and a misunderstanding.
Okay, so that seems to be a global thing.
I can understand it more there. Here in Australia, there's still people that don't understand and that have that fear towards Wicca potentially, probably because it's more out on the spotlight. But from what I understand of Wicca, and I have not dabbled, but I've gotten a little bit involved in it when I first arrived. It's very, very earth-based and very lovely and very beautiful. But they seem to have that same fear in Brazil towards Macumba. And I think that it's probably more warranted in Brazil because that kind of magic is really, really primitive. Like, they still do animal sacrifice.
Oh, wow.
They'll still do sort of things that like need bone, for instance. Like, I remember when I was about 13 years old, there was a big ritual that they were doing where the children weren't allowed to participate, that they were going out in search in the cemetery for a human bone. I kid you not. And when I tell people this in this day and age, they just look at me and go, that's ghastly. And it is, like, by these standards it is, but by those standards, no, it's very, very, very normal. So I can understand the fear in that sort of an aspect, but I can't understand the fear in this sort of modern neo-pagan style existence that I'm living in now.
Yeah, it's much tamer, I guess. Are you saying in Brazil, were you saying center?
Yes, it's, I don't know how to describe it because it's called a centro, and that sort of translates as a center, but like as the word center, but it's not really a center. So
is it like a gathering place, or are you just talking about when people come together? Like, is it like a church?
Well, it's a physical gathering place attached to our house, and it has an internal man-sized altar and like a courtyard with deity figurines along scattered through the courtyard, and a big herb garden that runs along the fence line because there's not a lot of greenery. It's very concrete there. Mm. So, yes, it's an actual physical location, and it's quite big. But, yeah, I'll say centre most of the time just because that's sort of like the direct translation. And it seems if I said the word Covenstead, that would make me uncomfortable, and I know that it would probably make other people uncomfortable because it's too not the exact description for it. So, somewhere in between.
And then today, coming from that and the various kinds of magic in your family, you call yourself an elemental witch, and you say you practice raw magic. And you started a series on that. I'm hoping to get more raw magic videos. But it sounds like you're not sacrificing animals.
No. I draw the line. There. And that comes back to part of the fact that I've become more eclectic in my style. I would never ever maim or injure an animal for any sort of ritual purpose. And I should put that out there as a disclaimer. But
we need a bumper sticker, witches in general, because people think that. We need a bumper sticker. No animals were harmed in the making of this magic.
That's right. That's exactly right. I do.
But you like to use things like spider webs and beetle shells, cast-offs, and things like that.
I found a little butterfly in my letterbox the other day. Spirit had left, and I thought, oh, it was like a treasure.
Yes. So when you find, these little treasures from nature, do you feel that they have a special energy that you can tap into, or do you use them symbolically? Like, how does that come into play with your magic?
With my magic, for the instance of the butterfly that I found, butterfly has a symbol to me personally already, and that's a symbol for transformation into beauty. Mm-hmm. From the sort of chrysalis to that beautiful, magnificent colour and the wings, and it's amazing. The transformation is amazing. So that is, in essence, the energy that I'll personally tap into. And because the butterfly was the form in which it was offered, then that would signify transformation into beauty for me. So I would keep that for rituals that I would do that would sort of lift my vibration up towards that particular goal, that transformation into beauty, that natural evolution. And I would probably potentially use it more in goddess honouring rituals, because I believe that that's that beautiful transformation when women tap into that gorgeous side of themselves. It causes a transformation, and it allows their vibration to lift, and they really become in tune with that feminine aspect and that feminine nature, and that's, in essence, that beautiful coloured wings coming out, and it makes people's light shine really brightly, I think. Oh. So that, in the instance that I would use that particular ingredient.
That's cool. And raw magic, as you just described it in a video I saw, you're saying, I'm a little bit confused about this. Can you differentiate for us between pantheism and animism? I do know the difference, but personally, but are you an animist, or were you just using that to describe raw magic?
I was using it to describe raw magic. I guess I am a bit of an animist. I'm not so much, I don't know, maybe I walk the line between the two, but I do believe that everything has a vibration, everything has a life or a soul attached to it. And that's sort of, especially in that natural world, like, because I work a lot energetically, I'm very well aware that all matter is made up of that vibrational energy, that kinetic energy, all the way down to that atomic level. But for nature in itself, I see that as something more divine, and it comes from a more divine source. And the vibration of natural objects to me is higher, and it does possess a soul. And like a witch is then capable of tapping into that beautiful natural energy and drawing from it both knowledge and just energy in general for the purpose of recharging, grounding, raising energy, all of those wonderful things, and healing as well, which is why I guess a lot of people are drawn to herbs for that healing quality. So
yeah, so basically you're communicating with the soul, in the individual soul that's residing in one particular rock or one particular flower.
Yeah, like an aspect of that soul, I guess. If you look at it in sort of a more global sense, then, we're all part of one sort of, one beautiful being. Mm-hmm. And I just see a rock as a different aspect of a personality of that soul, in much the same way as I do deity. I look at deity, even though I have my deity on my altar, I'm very well aware that deity is one beautiful, enormous energy, and that is a personality. That's a particular personality that I've chosen to honour in amongst the grand scheme of that beautiful energy that is deity, or that is spirit. So yeah,
it's sort of, you are kind of walking the line between pantheism and animism, because for me, the way I define pantheism is the divine is within everything, and everything is within the divine. And then I would say animism is you believe there's an individual soul within each rock, flower, tree, whatever, what have you. But the way you described it sounds like that individual soul is a drop in the whole soul.
Yeah, that's right. They just I see it all as one, and everything that's decorating this beautiful earth are just expressions, little moments in that one personality, I guess. I don't know, I've never really sat down and defined it, really. I've just gone my merry way, believe me.
Yeah. Well, it's fun to hear. I love to hear how different people practice and what they believe, and just their different theories, I guess. I guess none of us really have a monopoly on the truth. It's just fun to hear different takes, and if you have an open heart and an open mind, it can flavor your own practice.
I agree. Yeah, that's a really beautiful way to put it. I agree. I love that perspective. You're so upbeat. I like it. This time of the morning is absolutely necessary.
Yes. It's in the middle of the afternoon here right now, so I'm super happy that you got up at 6:30 to talk to us.
I was up already. I have a little 10-week-old bub, so he wakes me up at a really inopportune time. Or today, opportune. So
yes, a new baby. And you're going to teach your children magic, yes? You're already teaching your daughter.
Yes, she's adorable. She has an affinity to crystals, so I encourage that. And she likes working with runes, just to form general shapes. And she just likes to touch them and play with them, and I encourage that. And at the moment, she's going through an Om phase, where she'll say Om and then bow and say Namaste.
Oh, can you imagine people out there, a little sweet 3-year-old girl saying Om and Namaste? That is so
She's adorable. She's adorable. She gets a lot of attention when she's out in public, and it's the way I calm her down, because as a 3-year-old, she's as an almost 3-year-old, she's going through that finding herself, that personality, and with it comes all those beautiful tantrums, and at times it's like you're out in the shopping centre. I'm like, okay, come on, draw in center, do your om. So she'll put her hands together in a little way and go, Om.
Oh, that is so cute. Did you find growing up in a magical family that, like those of us who grew up in Christianity, when we got to be teenagers, a lot of us went through a whole rebellion where we rejected the family religion and went out in search of our own form of spirituality. Did you go through that, or did you just hang with what you were taught in your family and it always resonated with you?
It definitely always resonated with me. I always thought I was on the other side of the spectrum before I calmed down a little bit, but I couldn't understand why everyone everyone didn't practice some form of paganism because it seemed so unbelievably natural. Like you would see people practicing different forms of religion, of spirituality, and it seems sort of so forced
Yes.
instead of it flowing just so organically and evolving with your natural age and with the times, and it used to puzzle me and I could never understand it. And that was right when I was around sort of 12 or 13, and my grandmother, a beautiful, beautiful, very amazing person, just said, each people it takes time. It takes time for people what did she say, to raise their consciousness or to achieve their raised consciousness. And until that happens, like they'll go pushing and pushing and pushing until they find something that fits them. And she explained it beautifully, and she explained it in Portuguese, so it sounded much nicer when she said it to me. And I'm butchering it in this half-about way in English. But no, she did. She always enforced that tolerance, where I don't know. I think it would have been easy for me to even take the other side too, as in I'm pagan, everyone should be pagan, or I'm pagan, and be critical of other people who weren't pagan. But thankfully, she put me in the right direction, and I've just always thought, what a shame that everyone isn't. But
yeah, totally. I guess there's nothing to rebel against when you're growing up just in alignment with nature and your own natural inclinations. I guess there's not much to rebel against and go running and screaming away from.
That's it. I guess when my pagan friends really we get really talking about it over a few wines, and I'm a little bit more relaxed, and I'm more game to say a lot more stuff. I think it comes down to the fact that I think people have this huge misconception about me as a person because I come from an all practitioner family, or because our lineage it can be followed back so far. But I genuinely think that if you look back further enough in anyone's bloodline, you'll come across a pagan. I honestly and wholeheartedly believe that. And also the dynamics of a family. It's like I still come from a family in retrospect. And the dynamics of a family are still there. You don't always get along with your sisters. You might butt heads with your mother. It's just more the topics that you butt heads over are more just pagan inclined. And we had homework that we needed to do. We took a year out for dedication, and all of us were pulled out of school, and we did a whole year of honouring and dedication. And during that time, it was that was an intense time for us as a family as well, because we were all at different ages.
Yeah, how close are you to your sisters in age, who are all practicing witches? You guys must be a powerhouse when you all get together.
That sort of depends. We're all 4 years apart.
4 years apart?
Yeah, we're all 4 years apart.
Oh, okay.
We have our even years and our odd years, as we like to say. We're having an even year this year. And, we're born all 4 years apart, and each has their different flavour of magic. My older sister, she is very much a more kitchen-style witch. She doesn't even try, and she just makes the most amazing, amazing food. And it's just, when you eat it, you just have this, I don't know, you have this mystical experience, I swear, especially her sweets. And she pours a lot of energy and a lot of love into that, but she's very earth mother type practitioner. My little sister, I have two little sisters. My little sister Jennifer, she is probably what I would consider the most hardcore, and she just recently went through her trials. As recently as 3 months ago, she went through her witch trials, and she shaved off all of her hair, all of her hair, and she's scarified, and she went into seclusion where she couldn't eat a certain amount of food, like a certain quality of food. It had to be prepared in a certain way, and she had to eat it primitively with her hands. She couldn't be around any technology whatsoever.
Oh my good, that is hardcore.
Yeah, she's way hardcore. And then my little sister, she's very light-hearted. She's just very practically minded. She's a bit more like me, I suppose, in essence, but she doesn't tend to flavour her practice with any sort of Buddhist tradition, whereas I like to pull a little bit from like that Tibetan mysticism.
Yeah, I think Eastern philosophy and magic, they go together so well. They both honor nature, for one, and a lot of the concepts work. So I really like Taoism and Buddhism in particular, and yoga. Those things, they all just work so beautifully together.
Exactly. And I think that wherever that comes from, like that desire or that interest comes from, that's a really honest expression of divine talking to you, like of really communicating with spirit. So when you feel moved to follow something like that, like if you feel moved to buy a Tibetan meditation bowl, then that is something that I think people should do. Like if you really feel moved to do it, like to explore those little forms of expression, because I think that that's how they come about. Mm-hmm. Those interests come about. You'll look at something and it'll either be a book or a person or a crystal, and all of a sudden you'll just be moved to explore that avenue. And that's how it happened with me. I had Tibetan meditation bowls all around me at one stage. I'm like, and people were banging them. I'm like, I've got to have them. And I remember that feeling so well at 17. I'm like, I've got to have one. And I'm trying to figure out which chakra. And I was in this little new agey shop, and I was just, I just had this moment, and I've had them ever since.
Yeah. I think for me, I just use the word witch as my umbrella term, because forever it was like, I'm a little bit Buddhist, very new agey, a little bit Taoist, and then finally for me, just witch just encompassed, I mean, I love magic so much, but for me, it just encompassed everything I was trying to say when I would try to explain my spirituality to people. And I know when they hear the word witch, depending on the person, that can create a knee-jerk reaction. So I love to see people like you who are putting a really spiritual, peaceful vibe out there to go with that word, so people understand it's another form of spirituality, and a very beautiful, natural form of spirituality.
That's right. I think it can be very difficult depending on what culture you're in, what social circle you find yourself in, as to whether or not the term witch is well received. Mm-hmm. And I think for the most part, it's still not very well received. I mean, I heard this ridiculous story the other day, and this is a local story, that where I live here is Cairns. It's far north Queensland. It is on the foot, like on the doorstep of the beautiful Great Barrier Reef. We have this Daintree rainforest behind us, and that's World Heritage listed, and it's just an amazing place. It's high vibration, and you get these flavors of people up here that are really eclectic and very, very spiritually oriented, but there is absolutely nowhere for them outside of the natural environment to flourish. Like, there's no center that they can really go to. There's no place where they can actively meet, and there is not one single occult or witchy shop here in this entire city. And I heard that was because a couple of years back they opened one up and people protested. And they ended up closing them down. And I thought, well, that was only roughly about 5 years ago now. And I just thought that was just appalling.
Yeah.
Like, I can't understand that kind of a mentality, but...
it's fear.
It is. And I think that it comes, I think it's very, very difficult for people who grow up in these more mainstream religions, and they want to tell their family or their friends that they'd like to explore this path, and perhaps they put it off a lot in doing so because of that fear that they won't be well received. Mm-hmm. And they put that path off until much later in their life when they've sort of found themselves a bit more and worked that courage up. And I think that's a terrible shame, because they're missing out on that time where they could really, really explore and really flourish. And so, yeah, I think it's a little bit of a sad thing that it's not well received still to this day. It's getting better, granted, but not not awesome.
And we
I don't
have
know.
we have the Church of YouTube, is what I like to call it. It's like a gathering place for those of us who don't have, witchy families that we can talk about this stuff with. We have our own little witchy family here where you just see down-to-earth, cool, friendly, happy people supporting each other on their path and sharing their experiences. I know everybody was so excited to meet you. I know you got like the welcome wagon when you joined us this year. I love that.
I was so excited. I was honestly, there's still that little girl in me that thought, well, what if no one likes anything that I have to say? And there's that still that thing, and then it took me a little while, maybe a couple of videos actually, and I thought, well, this will essentially be like a diary for me, and just a way to sort of document it, because I would love for my daughter to be able to look back and see what I was like at this time, and it, a video speaks volumes compared to a photo. So I thought, what a great way. So
and now you're a little boy too.
He's just. I almost forget sometimes because he's so little.
I know, he's just a brand new person.
He's so cool though. He's so cool.
Well, where can we find you besides YouTube? And for people that want to look you up on YouTube, they need to look for The Elemental Witch 1. Yes?
I am The Elemental Witch 1 on YouTube. I've recently, very, very recently, joined the Oathbound Secrets collaborative channel as well.
That's going to be an amazing collab. I know it's already gotten started, but I know it's going to grow into something amazing.
I know. I'm really excited to actually be involved with Annika Garrett. I think she's an inspiration.
Definitely.
And an amazing artist too.
Yep.
And I think that's wonderful. Other than that, I'm sort of all over the place.
Like, you have a Facebook, you have a website. I can link to those down below for sure so people can find you there. Yeah,
I'm trying to think. I am everywhere. I don't know how to use Google Plus, but I started Google Plus the other day, and I'm such a weirdo about it. I'm just like, why can't I get this? I'm everywhere else. Why can't I understand how this works? But I don't. And the other day I looked and I had some request, and I was like, oh, I wonder how long that's been.
Right, totally. Isn't it ironic, too, that we practice like this nature-based spirituality, and then here we are connecting through the internet. And using technology. It's like such a funny irony.
I love it, and that's a personal expression for me as well, because I've studied natural medicine and now I'm studying information technology. So it's a natural expression of my life personally, and I love it. I think it's an organic, moving with the times sort of thing, and I think it's perfect for places like here in Australia. I'm not sure how it is in America, in North America, because I've never traveled to North America. I've never had the pleasure just yet. But in Australia, outside of our major cities, everything is so spread out, and there is so much rural area where people there'd probably be one pagan in each of these tiny little rural towns. So people are quite isolated. So I think that concept of the internet and YouTube being able to bring everyone into that community feel and that community environment, I think it is essential for people's evolution spiritually.
Yeah, the Church of YouTube, I'm telling you.
You're onto something there.
Yes. And usually when I wrap these interviews up, I ask people, what is your one tip to live a kick-ass life? But I want to change it a little bit, and I want to ask you, what is your one awesome takeaway tip for being a kick-ass witch?
My one awesome tip.
Maybe for a newbie, maybe for someone that finds this all enticing but doesn't really know where to begin.
I think it's important to view your life as a story, as a unique expression of your personality, as your authentic self, and to remember that every life you live is a story in the chapter of your soul, and to make that a beautiful story. That would be my ultimate. That was something that was said to me by my grandmother, and that's something that I like to say to people, just to remember that, life is just such a beautiful thing, and it goes beyond your wildest imagination and your wildest expectations, and to really honour Goddess within you. And and that beautiful spirit. So, yeah.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you.
Much
I
love.
flavor it in some way.
No, it was perfect. Much love to you.
Much